so much space. When you out there without care, I was out of tune. But it wasn't because I didn't know, no. I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly. I hope that you're having the time of your life. Think twice. That's my only advice. Who do you think you are? Bless your...
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to spend a few moments with me here on SML TV. Just a few things I would love to run by you. But before I do that, a few shout outs to you. George says, hello, amazing. Thank you, George, for being with us. Arnold, what does Arnold say? You look very snazzy in that suit. Really? You think so? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I don't have many suits. When I was younger, I used to wear suits. And I got to a place where I really don't wear suits. You know, sometimes I find it a bit of hard work to do that. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate that so much. Somebody says, go ahead. Okay. He says, go ahead. Looking good in that suit. Thank you. Bless you. Greetings, Mr. Chitambala. Keep up with your great work. Well, you know, we appreciate you saying that. Guys, very quickly, I just want to run something by you that I think is important for us to talk about. But before I talk about the main issue, I just want to remind you, oftentimes people forget how President Lungu became the PF presidential candidate. Many people don't remember that part. All they remember is that, you know, there's this man by the name of Edgar Lungu, who was a lawyer, who stood for president on the PF ticket and was subsequently voted in as our president, our sixth president. But people forget that there was a tussle. You know what a tussle is? There was a wrangle within the PF that led to Mr. Lungu's name coming to the fore. You remember, Mr. Lungu at the time was the Secretary General of the PF. Guy Scott suspended Mr. Edgar Lungu from his position as Secretary General. Remember, this was when Vasata had died. Our late president, Mr. Sata, he passed away. There was a leadership vacuum within the PF. People didn't know who was going to be the next president. There was a bit of political angst. You know that word, political angst? A bit of political anxiety that destabilized the PF for a while because nobody knew who the presidential candidate was going to be. Nobody had a clear vision of who was going to represent the party as far as the elections in the sphere of the presidency. Nobody knew. There were names that were being floated around, like Mr. Given Lubinda. There were many different names, but nobody really knew what was going to happen. There was even a rumor at the time. Many of you that were there, you remember this, you recall this. There was a very strong, palpable rumor that was making its rounds that Christine Kaseva, late President Sata's wife, there's a rumor going around that she wanted to stand as president. And amidst all of this political angst, amidst all of this political turmoil, the PF were in political purgatory. For those of you that are Catholics, you know exactly what that means. You were suspended in limbo. The PF didn't know where to go. And then all of a sudden, we began to hear the bleating of the sheep. If you're not a Christian, you won't know what that means. We began to hear the bleating of the sheep, and people were talking about this Secretary General by the name of Edgar Lungu, who had been suspended or dismissed by then Guy Scott. And that's when his name came to the fore. There was a bit of protest within the PF. A car was set on fire in protest against that action by Guy Scott against Edgar Lungu, who at the time was the Secretary General of the party. And because he was removed as SG, all of a sudden, the PF members started hearing this name, Edgar. Edgar. And when that name gained traction, all of a sudden, a ram in the bush appeared. Again, if you're not a Christian, you won't know what that means. All of a sudden, a name came to the fore. All of a sudden, the Zambian people began to latch onto a name that could possibly be floated as the presidential candidate. That's how Edgar Lungu became known, and he came to the fore. Now, of course, there were several things that happened subsequently that led to President Lungu's nomination as the PF presidential candidate, and then ultimately he became president. You know the story. I've told you the story many times before. Abena Willie Nsanda, the late Willie Nsanda, in conjunction with Innocent Kalimanshi, they blocked everyone else from challenging Walungu. Walungu went through unopposed. And I often say this, and I'll never tire of saying it because it's the truth. I'm not disparaging, I'm not disdaining anyone. It's the truth. President Lungu's nomination as the PF presidential candidate on the PF ticket, while illegitimate, his ascension to the presidency through the ballot box was legitimate because the Zambian people voted for him. But within the structures of the PF, everything in there was doctored. And here's the thing. This is the challenge that not just the PF, but every Zambian political party that comes to the fore, this is the challenge they all have. The smooth election of a presidential candidate. Almost all political parties have a challenge with this. This idea that one can go through unopposed is ridiculous. You go through unopposed as a political party candidate, and then you have to face the electorate against the backdrop of other opposition leaders. It doesn't make sense to me. So I think we need to do a lot. Zambia's democracy has to be fine-tuned. In order for us to have a more perfect union, we have to nip this thing in the bud. We have to clean up the way political parties select their leaders. You can't have a clique of thieves that decide within themselves who is going to be the leader. No, that process has to be transparent. It may not be perfect, but it has to be transparent. Anyway, so my point is, that happened, that passed. Now, here's the thing. President Lungu served twice, was sworn in twice as president. And then, and I don't know why African leaders go through this. I think every African leader is infected with this disease called the desire to stay beyond. It's ridiculous. When you do your term, when you serve your term, and let's be clear, guys, nobody rules over anyone. We do not live in a totalitarian state. We do not have a monarchy. The president is not a monarch. The Zambian democratic institution is not a monarchy. We do not have kings. We do not have rulers. We have presidents that serve within the circumference of a tenure, meaning they can serve twice. They can be elected a maximum number of 2 times. Once that's done, honey, in the words of Beyonce, step aside to the left, let somebody else take over. Let somebody else serve. Presidents serve. They do not rule. We have to change the way we speak as Zambians. We should no longer use the phrase rule. You're going to rule us. Oh, no. Nobody's going to rule anybody. We have presidents that serve. So here it is. President Lungu was sworn in twice. And reminiscent of former and late President Chiruba, because Chiruba is the one that started this craziness of going beyond your term of office. Former president and late President Chiruba came up with this harebrained idea to run for a 3rd term. And this is what he did. He did it in a very manipulative way. He said, no, I said debate. And in an effort for Chiluba to sink his teeth and his claws into the electorate, former President Chiluba began to sell Lusaka City Council assets at a giveaway price. I mean, almost nothing. I think the number was 10 kwacha or something like that. Manipulation. Why? Because he wanted to serve a 3rd term. But the Zambian people stood up and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go that way. And that's how Chiruba, he read the room. You know what that means, to read the room? He read the room. He saw the writing on the wall. And he realized that the Zambian people are not going to accept this 3rd term nonsense. And that's how he went to Mwanawasa. And we had President Mwanawasa serve, who was a brilliant president as well. So Lungu, he almost wanted to go down that road. But the Zambian people said, no, we're not going to have that. Now, what was happening? Let me now get into this deal here. In the last 2 years of the Patriotic Front, leading up to the 2021 elections, I want to talk about this. What happened was, remember there was talk of the National House of Prayer. Remember that? Which is another huge, big scandal. Goodness, what a mess. The PF had this idea that we could all come under one umbrella, like an ecumenical movement. You know what an ecumenical movement is? An ecumenical movement is like, every religion, every faith, every persuasion comes under one roof and we agree, which to me doesn't make any sense, because you can't amalgamate faiths. You can't do it. What you believe is what you believe. What I believe is what I believe. But the PF had this idea that we could have an ecumenical church, a church that can house all faiths, come together under this banner of oneness. And yet, at the same time, the PF were running a criminal organization. On one hand, they were talking about prayer and National Day of Prayer and National House of Prayer. They spent millions of kwacha acquiring land and building this edifice that is still incomplete. It's over there in Burma Road. Some people say Bama Road. You're fine to say either. So what the PF did was, there's a piece of land, approximately 10 acres. I wrote about this yesterday. I just want a verbal and visual record of this. What the PF did was, I call them the Notorious Patriotic Front. What they did was, they acquired a piece of land, which was approximately 10 acres, right next to that National House of Prayer property. They got that. And when they lost the elections, the top brass within the NPF, the Notorious Patriotic Front, decided to sell that piece of land for $1 million. Because in their minds, well, we've lost the election, so let's just, and this property is ours, it's on title. And that property was on title. So they went into an agreement with Sakali, which is a Chinese firm. And Sakali paid them $1 million. Not Zimbabwean dollars, US. Now, here's the problem. There are lots of members within the PF that knew nothing about that deal, number one. Number two, if the PF, which they are, if they're handling this type of money, why are they having difficulties holding a convention? I'll tell you why. Because they're trying to doctor an outcome. That's why. They're trying machinations. They're trying to play it like it's some type of chess game. There are players within the party that they're trying to put in certain positions. And that's the reason they are delaying the process of going to a convention. Guys, the convention that's nothing. With the amount of money that political institution has or has handled, a convention is nothing. It's different. There was a time, Sata, the late Sata, this was before he became president. There was a time he was looking for funds to run a convention. But this was pre-administration. This was before he became president. It was acceptable at that time to hear the PF say, we're looking for money for a convention, because they had never formed government. Basata had never become president. He was on the road to the presidency. He was destined for the presidency. And so it was plausible, and it made sense when he said, we're looking for money. We're galvanizing, we're fundraising, we're looking for money to hold the convention. That was acceptable. Not in this dispensation. The PF were in power for several years, had two presidents. First, Basata served as president, while Edgar Lungu served as president, with all those connections. And on top of that, you've got 60 MPs within the NPF who contribute 5,000 kwacha every single month to the party, approximately 300,000 kwacha that the party gets every single month. Nobody knows where that money goes. My point is, they have the muscle, they have the financial muscle to hold a convention. But why don't they want to do it? It's simple. It's because they want to doctor the outcome. That's why. So here it is. You must understand, and let me echo one of their members' words, Mbappe. You must understand that the NPF is not a private company. It is an institution, to quote him. That's what it is. So if you are a member of that institution, you have the right to ask what happens within that constitution, especially when it comes to its finances. Campaign finance reform is imperative. This nation needs campaign finance reform. Political parties just wake up one morning and they just crop up. We don't know who funds them. We don't know where the money comes from. We don't. Moving forward, no pun intended, moving forward, that is something we have to look into as a people. We can't have a situation where political parties just crop up. What if one day a political party gets funded by the wrong people? What happens then? We're in trouble, mate. We're in absolute trouble. So here's my point. My point is this. The notorious Patriotic Front is mired with financial unaccountability. And it's time they became accountable, not only to its members, but to the general public. I mean, you're a political party that produced two presidents, Lasata and Lungu. So it stands to reason, it makes sense for us as the citizenry to ask you how you spend your money. Not just you, everybody else, the UPND included. Because that's the way we're supposed to move. That is how this nation is supposed to be run in terms of campaign finance reform. We're not going to get very far if we keep doing what we're doing. I'm telling you now. All right. Thought I'd share that with you. Right. I've been speaking for 22 minutes. Gina says, runs in the blood, I guess. This is his nephew. Oh, I think you're talking about my Uncle Nevers. You know, the thing about StreamYard is that I don't see the comments and then the sub-comments. I don't see the sub-comments. The comments just come as comments. Okay? Derek says the next thought after your term is, how do you kill your opponent? That's Africa. That's true. It's very true. Thank you so much. Well, hey guys, thank you for watching. God bless. Have a wonderful day. And we'll speak to you again. Cheers.